Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Lore Theory, Morganite.
Chapter 1.
Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna talk about, Morganite, my lore theory around Morganite, and this is basically a theory that I have, come up with information that I have about the game, and this is just gonna be a theory. So if you like this kind of video, hopefully you'll watch some of my more lore theories as I have for other cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! With that being said, let's get on with the rest of the video.
Chapter 2.
It's true! The very being responsible for creating the Shadow Realm has crossed over into our world.
So let us begin. As you can see by that few minutes clip of the Pharaoh fighting Zork, is you see a wave of energy, as Isis basically says, that Zork is the controller or the creator of the Shadow Realm. And this is important, as this signifies that this is the first time, obviously in this world, in this Duel Monster world, that the Shadow Realm has been created. I want to stress this enough that I feel that at this time that magical beings didn't really exist in the world, in the Duel Monster world at this time. And this first wave created the magical beings that or magical entities that we know in the Duel Monster world today, cards such as Pot of Greed, etc., etc., etc. But why is this relevant, and what does this have to do with Morganite? Well, my theory goes like this. This wave of energy that came from the Pharaoh and Zork itself spread throughout the world when this duel first started, as this was the duel that would determine the fate of the world itself. And it was in this instance that when the Pharaoh's golden energy spread, it hit certain minerals or certain gems in the world. These gems obviously glowed, and each gem, right, had powers that were translated from the Pharaoh himself. As the Pharaoh has certain abilities, which is obviously like one of his abilities, as you know, whenever he has a duel, he can always draw the right card at the right time. Being able to just top deck the best card, being able to have a calm mind, etc., etc., etc. And these gems, basically, since they were near the wave radius of when he released this energy, have a lot of his power concentrated, and each gem has them all. Now, these gems, as now you can see on the screen with Time Tearing Morganite, right? Let's read Time Tearing Morganite and explain. For the rest of this duel, apply the following effects. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand. Draw 2 cards instead of 1 for during your normal draw, during your draw phase. You can conduct 2 normal summons / sets this turn, not just 1. You can ban this card from your graveyard and then discard 1 Time Tearing Morganite. Your opponent cannot activate monster effects when you normal summon this turn. So what's important about this is that this showcases, Time Tearing Morganite showcases the Pharaoh's power and abilities, being able to summon his ace monster all the time, every time, uninterrupted. Indeed, Time Tearing Morganite showcases this. But how did it get this power to begin with? I believe that during the time that the energy was spread, a skull servant was found, a normal skull servant, or just a skeleton was around where the gems were at the time.
Coincidence? I think not.
And when the skeleton obviously interacted with this gem, it therefore gained these abilities that we see in time-tearing Morganite. If we look at skull servants have the natural abilities of this time-tearing Morganite. But you can draw a lot of cards. A lot of effects in Skull Servant revolve around drawing. A lot of them revolve around unlimited normal summons in a sense, and a lot of them you can't really affect their effects as they are, when they're summoned, they don't really do anything.
That's kind of the truth.
So there is that sense, right? And this is the start of these Morganite spells, Morganite gems, binding themselves with creatures near these areas at the time when this wave had spread and causing this issue. Later on in this video, I will talk about where the Morganite got its name. But let's head on to the next section. Chapter 3. Okay, and now we're at the next slide, and here we'll talk about the next Morganite spell. And so to reiterate, we have to remember, as my theory goes, as it's the energy coming from when Zork and the Pharaoh dueled. During this time, the Pharaoh, as we know in the dueling monster world, has a lot of power. He is the signature force of good. And when his energy spread, his energy, obviously, and his deeds and his abilities could not be translated all into one gem. They were translated into several items. And the biggest concentration, in my theory, is these gems. These Morganite gems concentrated most of his abilities. While time-tearing Morganite translated a lot of the abilities he had for being able to summon his ace monster, right? Successfully without interference, and being able to draw cards just so that he could get the right card at the right time whenever he needed to, and being able to give himself opportunities. Essentially, time-tearing Morganite is the ability he had to give himself opportunities and being able to summon his ace monster without interruption. Okay, that's what's very important. And also, it was his this also was his ability to able to get himself out of a tricky situation. How he was able to draw to the situation, draw himself out of a bad situation. Hence the drawing to, being able to summon a normal a lot amount of times is the double summon ability, and being able to summon his ace monster without interference is him summoning Dark Magician. When we see the next part of his abilities with Succumbing-song Morganite, we realize here, as we can read its effect, having the same clause for the rest of this duel, apply the following effects. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand. Monsters you control can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. If your opponent battles out an opponent's monster until any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. You can banish this card, add 1 Morganite card from your deck to your hand. Place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. This Morganite spell, which is called Succumbing-song Morganite, is the Pharaoh's ability to be able to battle the opponent quickly and efficiently. There are times when the Pharaoh battles, he's able to just all of a sudden deal just a huge amount of damage out of nowhere.
That's really convenient.
This is his ability to battle quickly and efficiently, as we can see this ability with some Succumbing-song Morganite. And indeed, being able to attack multiple times. He does have this ability. We know the Pharaoh does use this ability quite a lot, being able to attack multiple times. And so, with the cards in front of you, as you can see here, what we learn is that this gem, which is color-coded red, there was a skeleton here that gained these abilities. But I believe this gem was found by a group of magicians. These magicians were studying an elixir, as we can see here, an elixir of white destiny. And indeed, this gem was found in part of their rituals. And as they were studying this white destiny, they discovered something that completely changed their views, as it gave a skeleton, I believe, which was nearby, the abilities of revival. And indeed, this skeleton would later be known as Elderlich, and it was in this ceremony that the Elderlich kingdom was founded.
Smooth.
Again, the Elderlich kingdom and everything to do with Elderlich is very important with Succumbing-song Morganite, as Elderlich has gained all the abilities of Succumbing-song Morganite. Like Succumbing-song Morganite, Elderlich usually is a card that can make 2 attacks, given the fact that it can recycle itself if you know Elderlich's ability. And with Succumbing Morganite's second effect to deal double battle damage, in a sense that is true, as it can essentially increase its attack points by 1000 via to its own effects. So in a way, in a sense, if it is used effectively and efficiently, it can deal double battle damage, in a sense.
Nice.
Alright, given all the effects and all the abilities that Elderlich, the Golden Lord, gets. And this to me is a sign of Succumbing-song Morganite, showcasing its power here, and the Pharaoh here showing part of his abilities. And part of, as my theory goes like this, time-tearing Morganite was found by a normal skeleton, and this normal skeleton became Skull Servant and gained that gem's abilities. The Succumbing-song Morganite was found by a group of spellcasters who were performing a ritual, I believe, to find an elixir for youth involving a white destiny gem, and accidentally, I believe, revived a skeleton which was in the desert far away, and thus making it a religious practice, because they believed that their ceremony for eternal life was granted, was given, as they say, credence because of this ceremony, and thus they named it Elderlich, and this skeleton was therefore made a kingdom involving this skeleton. Very important to notice this. And I think that's it really, and so let's go to the last Morganite spell. Chapter 3. And here we have it, the last Morganite spell. Guilt Gripping Morganite. Now, this will now showcase the last ability of the Pharaoh. When we read Guilt Gripping Morganite's effect, the same clause again for the rest of this duel, apply the following effects. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand, we know all this. You can almost summon level 5 or higher monsters without tributing. You do not pay life points to activate spell or trap cards. You banish this card from your graveyard, reveal one Morganite card in your hand, place the revealed card on the bottom of the deck, then draw a card. So what is this ability? Well, the Pharaoh has another awesome ability, which is to summon the God cards. And because the Pharaoh has the ability, or rather commands the God cards, and the God cards are level 10 or higher, he controls them, he owns them, and that is inherently part of his ability. Hence why this is also part of his ability to summon level 5 or higher monsters without tributing, meaning he can summon a god at any time of his choosing. The other part of this Morganite spell, saying that you do not pay life points to activate spell or trap cards, basically signifies his ability to be able to activate magic, his magics or spells or powerful spells without price.
That's too strong.
Look at most of the Pharaoh's spells that he uses. They have a lot of value with very minimal cost at all. Whether it's cards such as Pot of Greed, or Monster Reborn, or Card of Sanctity, a lot of his cards offer a lot of positive feedback with minimal negative aspects. that happened to him. This is a power that he has, being able to just get the best value for minimal effort. But what does this have to do, right, with where these gems got their name? I believe the gems got their name because we need to go back to what happened and to what Isis said. As when the duel first started, Zork, as we know, as I've stated in this video, created the Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm is him, and him is the Shadow Realm. Indeed, Zork is the Shadow Realm, and everything that comes from the Shadow Realm is Zork itself. That is what I believe anyway, and that's how my theory goes, right? And so, when again this energy spread as the duel first started in this dual monster world, I believe these gems, when they were there, were discovered by a witch known as Morgana, right? She discovered these gems and was doing some studies. And these gems, when they were studied, she noticed they had unusual abilities. And because she was part of, I think she was one of the only ones who wasn't screaming and kicking when these energies obviously were permeating across the land, and was actually studying them and trying to find ways to contain this power, these gems and that were around were named after her, known as Morganite. And I believe in her studies, as she studied them and as she pertained to their abilities, I believe she died, right? Because again, this is pure concentrated abilities of the Pharaoh, and no normal human being is able to contain these abilities, I believe. Got to remember, these three Morganite gems are all of the Pharaoh's abilities concentrated into gems. This is extremely powerful, and in my theory again, I believe no normal human being, right, who doesn't have a connection to the Pharaoh himself can obtain this power, or rather contain this power. And in studying these gems, and obviously, and as she died again, studying these gems and trying to understand her life work, we discover these gems were named after her as a remembrance to her sacrifice in understanding these gems. And so when we see Morgana here on the screen, as you can see here, Morgana the Witch of Eyes, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish one Morganite spell from your graveyard to negate that attack. You can only use each of the following effects of Morgana the Witch of Eyes once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Morganite spell from your deck to your hand. If you have 3 or more Morganite spells with different names in your graveyard and or banishment, you can change the attack of all monsters your opponent controls to 0. Indeed, her abilities definitely fall into the theory that I have, that her studying of Morganite spells and her valiant sacrifice into understanding these gems, right, basically rendered her, and it was her lifelong passion to try to understand this, because I believe this duel lasted for eons, maybe millions of years. We have to remember, when we see the show, in my opinion, when we see the show from Waking the Dragons, when the Pharaoh is basically dueling Zork, we see that in a span of 3 episodes. But you have to remember that the Pharaoh and Zork are godlike beings here. They're the only people that have these abilities, right? And time is a concept which is different for people who aren't gods. So while this duel maybe might have, when we look at it, might have lasted for 3 episodes, where we see it with as maybe an hour, possibly within that time frame, these might have lasted in the normal world as this is happening. This might last for thousands of years, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 of years. This also explains, right, why the modern world, when we go into modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And you see the series, that people do not know the abilities of the Pharaoh, or don't even know why, or are just confused about ancient Egypt in the show of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters, right? Because the duel of Zork spanned thousands of years, right? That one duel. And that is my hot take and absolute absurd theory here about these Morganite spells, right? So let's head on to the conclusion.
Final chapter.
And so here I am at the conclusion. So what am I going to say? What I'm going to say is that the Morganite spells, named after Morgana, who was a witch that found these gems and made it her lifelong passion to contain these gems as their energy spread throughout the world. She became famous, and hence why, and she died serving the people and trying to find a way to contain these gems. Hence, the gems were called Morganite in remembrance of her sacrifice in saving the people. Anyways, this to me is the legend of the Morganite spells. The Morganite spells, in my theory and hot take, are the concentrated power of the pharaoh himself, as they have split up his power into three parts. As his power, as he is a god in my eyes anyway, in the theory, the dual monster world, right? And his abilities are things which cannot be explained or obtained by normal human beings in this dual monster world. You have to remember the pharaoh is the strongest thing in the dual monster world. He is I would say he is the cap of power levels here. And so why is this important? This is important to realize that Morganite is an extension of himself. The gems are extension of his abilities, and they choose worthy successors, right, to pass his abilities along. This also therefore explains powerful spells that come out during this time. My also hot take theory is that powerful spells, right, are concentrated abilities of the pharaoh himself. Pot of Greed, right, for example, is the pharaoh's ability to draw cards at desperate moments. Every powerful supportive spell is the pharaoh's ability to draw. And the closer the more powerful the spell is the reason why the spells are so powerful in the olden days, as my theory goes like this, is that these spells or pots were close to the wave when this duel happened. So for example, near the blast radius where the pharaoh released this wave of energy, the closer you are to his energy, the more powerful the magical entities or beings that were near this energy, the more powerful their abilities are. The further away they are from the blast radius, the less potent or powerful they are. This is why Pot of Greed has such a broken effect. But Pot of Prosperity, which was farther away, I would say, from the blast radius, from the pharaoh, has a weakened effect, even though it's still just so powerful. This also therefore explains with Zork why dark beings, again, dark creations in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have powerful abilities in the early game, in early Yu-Gi-Oh! But as we go into later and later abilities as time passed on, why their abilities are not as powerful as they were in the very beginning. For example, look at Mercurio the Destroyer, right? Unerrated, it has the ability to activate traps from the hand. Absolutely broken, even though it did get an errata, but still, right? It's still a very broken ability. And I think that's generally it, really. So all I'd like to say is tune in next time as I'll cover more lore theories on this channel. And this is a new video. Hopefully you like this sort of thing. And I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.